throw that out
Good.
there. Yeah.
Bob, you were out and about teaching this week, yeah?
Let me open, Mike.
I'm in
Let me
Kentucky.
do the formal open.
Okay. Oh, that's right. It's open.
Yeah. All right. Hello and welcome everybody to the Hazmat Guys Nation Roundtable, where hazmat responders from around the country get together to talk about hazmat. This week we're calling it episode 35. Believe it or not, we've done this for 35 straight weeks.
We still can't get on in time.
And yeah, we still can't figure it out. And we've got some news we're going to go over the week after the intros, but thanks anybody who actually stuck with it and is figuring things out. You might have heard us talking about it. The Google Hangouts is going to eventually switch over to YouTube. Supposed to be better in all ways, shapes, and form, but right when we figure this one out, that's when it's going to change over. And yeah, to you guys. To Kosh, where are you?
I am in lovely Winchester, Kentucky, doing some HAZMAT training for one of our good friends and buddy pal, Matt Blows and the boys. And thank you guys in Station 2 for having me to dinner tonight after training. Appreciate it.
Despite his name, he's a great guy.
Wait, me or Blows? I don't know how to...
Blows.
I just love the name. It's awesome. So, no, they took great care of me, and we got another day of training, and then I fly home. So, into a storm. So, good stuff.
He's actually one of the prime examples of how this forum and these systems that we're starting to create works, because he was one of the ones that came out and said, hey, listen, we had a really crazy run. Let me talk to you about it. And he was nice enough to come on the air, and I learned something that had been that I was told was not true, was absolutely true, and it was all about the neutron radiation. So not to give a quick cheap plug, but go take a listen to that one, and maybe you'll learn something as well. It was pretty good. But he's a great example of how everyday people, everyday hazmat people can come on and share information, and we can all learn from each other.
Jason, what's happening in Indiana?
What's up, fellas? I'm lucky to be here right now. I literally just parked the car and ran in to get on the air here, and we're fighting these stupid tornadoes and storms and stuff. So it's been pretty rough the last about 2 weeks here in the Midwest.
Wow, those pictures were incredible. All right.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And I think we do a whole show on storm, weather, flood, tornado-related hazmat incidents. So, I mean, that's got to be we talked about Jay-Z and dealing with 120-degree heat hazmat, but some of the storm-related stuff. But if nobody has anything, I will get right into reading the first news story.
Go for it.
All right, we got that actually worked, believe it or not. All right, we looked at Hazmat Nation and found what was interesting. What was the top searched on the site, as well as number of clicks. Thousands of people were interested in the air gas explosion in Florida. This killed one individual. I'm going to read the initial article here. This was local media out of Florida. Said it was a boom so loud it shook the foundation of the earth. It shook the windows, the fixtures, the wall. It shook everything. This was somebody nearby. The dishes started shaking. The windows started shaking. I mean, we thought the hot water heater had blown up or something. It was pretty traumatic. That was from some local media sources. And that was somebody that claims they're about 50 miles southeast of this incident. So the investigation of a fatal explosion at the Cantonment Industrial Plant is ongoing, but state officials suspect the blast is a result of an accident in the plant's loading dock. One person was killed Sunday in an explosion around 12:10 p.m. See, I always got to think about this. That's middle of the day, right? At the air gas facility at the Ascend Performance Materials chemical plant. There were no other reported injuries in the incident. In a written statement, Air Gas confirmed the casualty was an employee but did not release the name. We have learned that one associate has died as a result of the incident. We are deeply saddened by the loss of the member of our Air Gas family. So the State Fire Marshal's Office conducted a preliminary investigation. I'm sure we'll hear more. I'm sure there'll be other agencies involved. of the circumstances of the explosion. John Moore, communications coordinator at the Office of Chief Financial Officer, said the investigation is still ongoing, but the early assessment is that the explosion likely originated near a holding tank in the air gas loading dock where two semis were holding nitrous oxide. Moore said he couldn't confirm if the explosion happened during the nitrous oxide transfer process, but did say it appears that the blast was not intentional. I guess they mean intentional as a nefarious act, not that they would just do that. There is nothing to lead us to believe this was caused by a vindictive action or any type of foul play. The remains of the deceased were recovered about 50 to 75 feet from the area of the tanks. Ascend manufactures and supplies chemicals, fibers, and plastic products for use in various commercial and industrial products, according to the company's website. The explosion Sunday drew a crowd of concerned family members, and it goes on. So I took a class on oxidizers in Baltimore. What do we know?
It was a great class. That was a great class on oxidizers, by the way, Mr. Monaco.
I don't know. I saw videos of guys sleeping.
That's it.
Damn it, he caught us.
He not only caught us, but what happened to the magic trick? The magic wizard stuff.
Wizardry.
Yeah.
Well, as far as nitric oxide is one of those oxidizers that's pretty powerful. We know it mostly in these kids that run around in their cars and they try to soup up their cars, and laughing gas in dentist's office, things like that. I wish I had more information on this. I really do. I tried to do some research and background and find out. There's just so many missing parts to this story. Like, was the nitrous involved? Were the explosion? Were the people near the explosion and they got blown apart, or were they 70 feet when the explosion took place and they just went down right there? What were the other containment in the area? Because nitrous oxide by itself isn't just gonna explode. It needs a fuel. And when we start talking about oxidizers, we start talking about getting the fuels and getting the oxidizers and the oxygen and the right ratios, and you could either massively increase combustion or you can have an explosion. So this must have been multiple things happening at once. This had to be one of those tragedies where somebody goes, oh yeah, this failed, and this failed all at the same time, and it just led to this really weird situation in which there was a catastrophic failure of something. But without any more information, I don't really know, how to play it. What would you guys do if you came across a I keep saying nitric acid, nitrous oxide leak?
Or even better, an explosion with the one thing in the report I think I might have skimmed over was the orange cloud, right, Bob? I think we even saw a picture.
Yeah, there was a.
Now you're first in on an explosion, so you wouldn't have known what it might be.
Yeah, you're pulling up and you see this big piece of metal conduit coming up with this brown gas coming out of it. Is what their venting process was after the explosion. So, not knowing what it is, you start pulling up in something like that, and you got a report of one person missing. What are you going to do? That area, just to kind of give everybody an idea, that's up towards the Panhandle, almost by the Panama City area. So it's way up there, and I think it's even in I don't want to call it rural area, but it's not highly populated.
I can tell you from
Alabama. Go ahead, Jason.
No, I can say from what you're describing, I can tell you from my very basic law enforcement training. So anything that's a color, a smoke that's got a color other than black or whatever to it, that's a problem. So I think that those are red flags from the very get-go, and obviously I think you're looking for, you're rolling in, you're going to an explosion, you've got possible people hurt and all that sort of stuff. You're kind of going through wind speed, wind direction. Where am I responding to? Is it an EHS site? Are there MSDS, or SDS sheets that I need to be thinking about and doing that sort of stuff? Bills and all that. So I'm with Mike. I don't know that there's a lot that we can really deduce from just the article.
You know that's a really interesting point that you brought up. And if you think about it, we don't have in New York City. We don't have a whole lot of like industrial type facilities where they're manufacturing chemicals. But if you've got this in your first due area, and you hear a report of an explosion there, that whole upwind uphill that really starts to come into play. We don't really do it that much in the city because we're not dealing with huge quantities of stuff. But goddamn, if you're manufacturing something, you probably have a little bit of product floating around. So yeah, that how am I going to approach this scene starts to become probably one of the immediate things that you're thinking about. And if you're in this first due area, you hopefully know this is a chemical manufacturing plant. So your little sphincter should be puckering up, and you should be thinking of everything you possibly can as you're approaching.
I gotta
And
say,
Phil,
this is I've been critical when it comes to these small scale hazmats, and we'll say in a vehicle, in a trailer home, in a home, when it comes to rescue and hazmat. I gotta admit, this is where the rule of thumb was meant to be in something like this, because going in, is it a West fertilizer, is it this and that, and I wish I could say I was as smart as Todd Burton, but he had sent some text saying. And anybody that doesn't know, Todd Burton, San Diego County, as well as IEC, that does some training in California. Nitrous oxide is a clear gas. What spewed was red-orange, which is nitrogen dioxide. Add moisture, and that equals nitric acid. That's straight from somebody probably better than Google. And going back to just the knuckle dragging first in engine response, if that doesn't qualify as a standby and kind of look, I imagine if somebody was blown 50 to 75 feet, they were that wasn't a rescue. That was a let's not get anybody else hurt.
well, you know,
But
and you
then,
mentioned too that they also make plastics and stuff too, right? They
Yeah.
do some plastics. So there's other things beside the nitrous oxide in there that you need to start making, take into consideration, whatever that other is.
yeah. So from an us point of view, we could probably do that a little bit better. But geez, could you imagine like what Phil's saying with these the first due operations companies coming in? Like you got a report of an explosion. We know now that there was only one person hurt, but they don't know that, and now you start to get into the whole. All right, I got to go into like a rescue mode. I got to go into like a search and rescue mode. There's been an explosion. I know I'm dealing with chemicals. Now you get somebody who's not comfortable, and they start to turn around and they go, "Oh crap! Like, is this a hazmat scene? Am I going to be going? Am I going to be going in and doing a rescue? Is this safe for me? What is going to protect me? What can I do? How close can I come?" This is that whole operations rescue at a hazmat scene.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And one of the hazmat truck that I saw in the news video that was responding was from the Naval Air Station. So from I forget the name of it up there, but the major naval air station up there where they have the museum and everything. That's their hazmat team. I think that's Escambia County. I think is the county that the incident happened in, but it was close enough where that hazmat team responded. So there wasn't. What I'm saying is there wasn't a hazmat team readily on site. It took a little bit of time for them to get there, I think.
Yeah, Escambia County is, I think, Pensacola.
Yeah.
Anybody want to go fire off their initial actions and then further stuff you do from what we know? And somebody had to be first in on this, and somebody had to size it up. And whoever that was, that's a career call, I'm sure. And if it wasn't, then you work in a pretty busy district.
Yeah, no joke. I really don't know if I would hold it against any first due company that really didn't go beyond the gates.
I agree with Mike. I think if you're pulling up and you see something that color venting from one of their release ports, which is something that's supposed to do, until you get as much information as you possibly can, you need to hold. I hate to say it, but you need to hold back a little bit to get the pieces of the puzzle, or at least as many as you can, and then try to figure out what your instant action plan is going to be from there. Because remember, not only are we dealing with the plant, but what if this is something that we now have to evacuate people? That's something to keep in the back of your head too. So you're dealing with a lot right off the bat. So
yeah, there's a good deal of information to process.
Well, and I think another thing, a really valid point everything that's bad, but you know they have emergency radios here. They have safety plans, and I think that getting plugged into that is probably as important as anything. That way, you're not necessarily shooting from the hip to try to roll up on one of these blind.
Yeah, my expectation was, I mean, they've done it before. I'd be pulling up, hopefully, to that area. You know, usually the gates are far enough away, looking for the plant manager, looking for somebody coming out. And like every other call, first of all, I mean, I think this is obvious when we compare it to that imminent rescue call in the smaller space that we've talked about quite a bit. And in this case, gathering information, and just like any other structure fire MCI, start thinking about what rigs you need. Don't let them have to see it on TV to show up. Know who you're going to call and their staging location, and start to organize. And this is classic. Let's start setting up the incident command. Even that first in might not even be pulling a hose line. They might be just looking at maps and trying to figure out, because you always put yourself, you got to think first in, then you go, oh, you're second and third, you're 5 minutes away. And, those men and women are antsy-pantsy thinking, okay, give us an assignment. What do we got? What do we got? So, that's a big one. I'm very curious. I have a feeling the CSB and all the other acronyms will be doing a big investigation on this, and there'll be some videos and tragic loss of life or whatever happened, and hopefully we can find out more details.
But either way, the operations level guys out there, right? SCBA, full firefighting gear, want to protect the lungs, that can go a tremendous... Or you see somebody down with the SCBA and your face piece and the structural firefighting gear, you can get in pretty quick. You can grab the guy. Your biggest concern is going to be some kind of a secondary explosion. Chemical-wise, again, just like these smaller ones, incidences that Phil's talking about, we can still put on our bunker gear, put on our SCBA, go in, make a line of sight rescue, and pull out.
Yep, I agree.
Got one up. Should we go to number 2?
Sure.
Sure.
Here's number 2. And good job to whoever was on that. And if you were, contact the Hazmat Guys, podcast. We're going to tell you all the different ways to get a hold of us if you want to share any insight to share with your peers. Okay, news story number 2. We had several to choose from. I'll actually say there's been some more chem suicides. There was Miami-Dade had an ammonia leak, and I noticed a pepper bomb incident. But the one we chose, which we actually received the story, Jason, do you remember who we got it from? Hot off the presses.
No, let me see if I can find it.
If you find it, but this involved the stuff we think about a lot that doesn't necessarily happen at everybody's first in, or it happens more often in some people's. Axial Corporation. At approximately, this was the initial statement, approximately 8:40 a.m. on Saturday, August 27th, a rail tanker car loaded with liquid chlorine developed a leak inside the chemical facility, which is located in Marshall County near Proctor, West Virginia. The rail car was no longer leaking. Okay, so this was the update. So we had a rail car leaking. To summarize, we had a rail car leaking chlorine. It does say it was located within the boundaries of the facility. Chlorine probably doesn't pay attention to the fence line. And they had an incident where they had to not only stop the leak, but there was evacuations in place, and you're rolling on this leaking chlorine rail car with persons downstream. Go ahead, Bob. What do you got? What are you going to do? That's your dispatch.
As a first unit non-hazmat guy, I'm going to try to take into consideration. Hopefully, everybody has hazmat ops, but that's not always the case. But as a lieutenant, hopefully I know enough to look at the wind. It could be a flag, could be trees, could be whatever in that general area, just so I got an idea what I'm getting up to. And then I'm going to try and get as much information as I can and evacuate whatever areas I need to, get a hold of the people on site. It kind of reminds me back to the famous Festus incident where they had that chlorine leaking from the rail car, and you can actually watch the cloud sink down into the lower levels and go through some other areas. Really the first due engine company or truck company or whoever gets there, if they're non-hazmat, it's going to be a gather information recon. That is the biggest. Let me tell you, from a hazmat guy point, the best thing we can get is on-site intel from the people that are there, because that is going to help drive our decision making. So that as much information as you can get when you're on scene, how many people, is there anybody trapped, how much of the product's leaking, what's it leaking from? That's always a good clue. That's going to help us on our thought process as we're responding. We had kind of this discussion the other day, actually, because we have some rail cars in our area. What would we do? Because we normally just send two-man teams in. But I think if you look back to the Festus incident where you video, that's rail cars and stuff like that, you probably ought to be sending a four-man team in if you can. Not everybody has that luxury, obviously.
Yeah, because it is not easy getting on top of a rail car, with just two people. I mean, the equipment alone is a bastard. From a first due company that's coming in, we I guess from an operations level point of view, we stress so much the ERG. You open up the ERG, you go to chlorine. What's going to be the very first thing you do once you've identified that the placard is, what is it, 1017? So it brings you to chlorine. The very first thing that ERG is gonna indicate to you is what? Anybody know? It's going to be highlighted in green, which is going to be the emergency. It's going to be the poisonous gas. So we're going to switch right to the green, and that first due company is going to follow the directions for evacuation. Long distance evacuation, downwind, isolation distances, the whole 9 yards. So again, here's a great situation for your first due units where your ERG is really helping you dictate those first 30 minutes of operations, where you can open that up and you could say, okay, this is what I've got. This is what it's telling me to do. Let's go ahead and start that operation. So on top of the recon, you can have guys starting your initial 30 minutes ERG is telling you to do.
Right, and if you don't have the ERG, everybody and their brother has a smartphone. Hopefully you have at least Wiser downloaded on there. There's a part on there where it will actually do the same thing that the ERG will. It will tell you, how far you need to evacuate and give you all the same information. So, yeah, either one of those would be great.
So this one, we know they had evacuation, so somebody had to make a decision, plot plume, decide shelter in place versus evacuate. Said it was a Saturday morning, which tells me maybe obviously operations were doing something. If chlorine's a hot commodity, they might be working 24/7. I don't know. Obviously, the evacuations, which we can discuss, but either way, the leak has to be stopped. So I'm thinking first in, just like if it was a rail car that hit a vehicle. Bob mentioned the four-person. It says it's in the facility, but I'm checking with the rail and I'm making sure that no cars are coming through. Everything's shut down. Because if it's a yard, they're everywhere. Just like a brush fire or anything else, I'm setting up a safety to verify that. And then that recon team that goes in the from uphill, up the wind, downhill, downwind, the right direction, finding out which car and how they're going to attack it. So now, Mike, you're on the hazmat, and somebody's got to actually stop the leak because it's going to take a long time at its rate and volume. What do you got going on?
Well, I'm gonna do a couple of things. One, we're gonna try to sit down with if it's not leaking from the rail car itself, right? We said it was kind of inside the facilities. We don't know whether it was a tube connected to the rail car or the rail car itself, right?
Right, correct.
So I would sit down and I would try to determine, okay, what exactly is leaking? And then I'm going to do the KISS method. What is going to be the easiest thing to do? Maybe the easiest thing to do is just shutting off the supply of chlorine going to the leak. So maybe try shutting it off at the very previous shutoff valve, which may or may not be the actual railroad car itself. But I would try to shut off as close to that leak as absolutely possible, whether that's inside or outside, talking with people that are working in the facility, trying to figure out what is what. I would definitely be taking in a camera with me so I could take pictures, because if I have to retreat and show a facility manager, hey, this is what we saw, this is where this was, this is where this was. He could turn around and say, okay, this valve does this, or this valve does this. But yeah, my thought process is going to be, shutting off the leak, isolating the break, and then if I can't do it via valve, then maybe try doing it via patching, if chlorine will even allow me to do that.
Jason, you're an emergency management director as well as former ground pounding.
Yeah,
you got the assignment. It's a Saturday morning. There's maybe one patrol car, or however it's working out, and now you've got people that are calling 911 symptomatic. What's going on? What do you do about those houses downstream?
Well, I think it goes back to knowing your area, knowing your first due, responsibilities. So, and pre-planning. I completely agree with Mike. I think the KISS method is absolutely the way to do it. You've got to have some pre-planning as far as your community emergency contact. All that stuff is in SARA Title II facility paperwork. But this is rail, so this is DOT. It's a little bit different. This could enter a town. It could be something that's at a facility, or it could be in the middle of nowhere. So I think that you have to be flexible in your response to be able to do that, because this car, it just happened to be in this particular jurisdiction. But think about it. I mean, it may be a run from one end of the country to the other through hundreds of jurisdictions, and everything from the 5 and 10 man volunteer fire department to the large metropolitan area. So I think equally we all need to be prepared for that. If you've got rail, if you've got certainly DOT tankers are running through everybody's jurisdiction, and I agree. I think that pre-planning, having as Mike and Bobby call it, the hot wash, having the breakfast table or firehouse kitchen conversations. What are we going to do? Who are we going to call? Where is our closest backup? And I think that those are so very, very important. I completely agree with their assessment of the situation. Try to intelligence as you possibly can, and then start making those key point decisions, what I call actionable decision points. Are we going to evacuate? Are we going to tell people to shelter in place? How far is that going to be? Who's going to monitor the weather? Who's going to be our entry? Are we going to set up RIT for those guys? Obviously, a rail car, there's a lot, thousands and maybe tens of thousands of gallons of something. And am I correct? Was this a liquid chlorine tanker? Does that, for some reason, I want to say that.
That's what the article said. I mean, we can only go off what they're saying, but that was the press release.
Right. So you got to wonder, well, what is the are we dealing with gases? Are we not dealing with gases? What exactly are we trying to deal with? And what are those decision points? So, I don't know how far, as riding the seat goes, are you the one that's going to make that decision? You might be if you're a volunteer fire department and you got 4 guys, on 2 pieces of apparatus, and the town's looking at you to make a decision. Hey, what do we do here? You might have to make that and say, hey, look, we need to evacuate. So, don't be scared to make those decisions. I would certainly feel more comfortable with erring on the side of caution. But if you've never had to make that decision before, you better prepare yourself for it, because it always happens in Potunk, South Carolina, that's never seen this stuff before, and you always got the one guy who's it's kind of like interviewing the lady at the trailer park in Indiana after the tornado, but you got the one guy with the crooked fire helmet going, man, let me tell you something, it was bad. I mean, so. You just never know
that shit for miles.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Well,
so I think that.
Who's the IC, Kosh, on an incident when you're first in?
Hopefully not me. I'm off.
Whoever's first in. I mean, heck, it could be any volunteer combo. When you're first in, you're IC.
You're right, and you know what? Like everybody's already said. Gather in as much information as you can, start evacuating people, or maybe we're going to shelter in place. These are things that need to be based on decisions weather, terrain, all those other things that all come into play. And this is operational level stuff, guys. So if you're not up on those basic operational things, find a class, look it up, and figure it out. One of the things I was just thinking about when we were talking is there's a lot of departments and hazmat teams that have area arrays or safe sites. How many people, we set them up for bowl games and this and that, but have you ever gone and deployed them around the facility in your area? Just rapidly deploy it and see how quickly it's set up, how quickly you can get it working or not working, because sometimes those things could be a big help, but if you're not on your A game, they're going to be a big hindrance. While we were talking about this, we got I literally just got an email about the Chemical Safety Board, because I am a nerd. I get those little alerts. They are just now deploying to Pensacola for that accident. They got a team out of D.C. heading that way.
Hey, Kosh, why don't you tell our listeners how do you sign up for those alerts?
I don't remember how I signed up for that alert. Actually,
Yeah.
Okay, good talk.
I was probably drunk one night. Tried to figure it out. No, actually, if you go to Chemical Safety Board, you can go to their website. You can sign up for email alerts and get different things like this. Again, that's a great site. We mentioned it, I think, last week's show, where they do reenactments of lessons learned and how the incident actually happened. So it's a great sitting around the table. You know what? As I mentioned several times, when you're through learning, you're through. You can never learn enough. So spend 20 minutes and learn something.
Awesome. And on that, Todd, I actually knew this one. I was going to mention it, but he said chlorine is at less than 500 psi in liquid when compressed, but leak will be gas and vapor space, as you know. Yeah. And thanks, Todd. He keeps us honest.
Do you know, I think he also invented Google and Wikipedia.
Yeah, when it comes to the chem knowledge. We need to do a show just like try to stump Todd Burton.
I like it. Stump Todd show. I like it.
Yeah. And echoing that, it's who is it? Dennis Smith from Report from Engine Company 82. This could be the night. So nothing annoys me more than something like a rail car training, and they give you the opportunity to go climb and do all that. You got personnel that stands around and with their hands in their pockets. Get your hands dirty, and I'm sure whoever worked near that facility, maybe they go there all the time, or maybe that was the first time, and hopefully they had thought about it.
Yeah, if you're a hazmat team, don't just walk up and down these rail cars. Actually, break out your equipment and haul the crap up to the top, because that is a whole logistical nightmare in and of itself. Is being on top of a rail car in a level A, getting equipment up in a manner that you're not going to fall and kill yourself and rip your suit to shreds. So don't think oh, I've thrown a C kit on the simulator at the fire academy, or some guy came by with a trailer and I was able to put it on with no problem. It's a whole different ball game, because if you're in a chlorine leak, especially up top at the valves, that stuff is coming out. It's a liquid. It's coming out as a vapor. It's coming out as a green vapor. You literally can't even see anything. You're doing everything by feel. So there is a lot more to a rail car chlorine, especially the C kit, than just putting it on. You need to be able to almost do it blind and make your way around the top of a rail car almost blind. So if you're in an area where you see a tremendous amount of these, you really need to get on a monthly basis. You need to get your hands dirty until you feel comfortable, performing those actions in a level A and blind.
That would be, if I was to design the next fire station, it wouldn't be lead compliance. I'd have a survival prop habit trail to get to the kitchen, and then a series of props that you have to do just to get to the dorm. I mean, why not? But I think we covered it. What was interesting is these were two very much DOT and very much fro type incidents, because it's going to be the fros that set this thing up correctly. And I'm going to go around the horn for the closing. How about you, Kosh, from Kentucky?
Kentucky, again, thanks everybody. We appreciate it. Jason and I will be at Virginia Beach in just a short couple of weeks for the Virginia Beach Hazmat Conference. And we'll be there having fun, and then we're all going to be, all the clowns you see here, plus Bobby, if he's listening, hiking his crazy self up the trail. The guy's a fitness machine. Best of luck, and we will see him and all the other clowns in Nashville in October.
I'll be honest with you. I'm hoping right now somebody's staring at him, going, "You got a pretty mouth."
Yeah, there's got to be a banjo playing on that.
Somewhere. God, I could only hope.
It'll be down to just the hazmat guy. Hey, you'd have half the technical difficulty. Mike, tell me where you're going to be.
We're going to be in a couple weeks in the middle of September. I think that's the 23rd. We're going to be in Plymouth, Massachusetts. There is a hazmat convention going on there. Nashville will be coming up, and I think that's it for on my schedule. But you can always reach me.
Too, right?
We do. We have an instructors development conference, but it's a closed conference.
Oh.
And so it's just the instructors. And I'm trying to think. You can always reach me at Mike at the Hazmat Guys. Throw down questions, thoughts. We are always looking for people to come on the air and talk about an incident that you had and what you did and what you were thinking, what your thought processes were, what your decisions were, and the mistakes that you learned. And believe it or not, it's the everyday runs. It's the guys that are not, anything crazy that we learn a tremendous amount from. So please, we're all the same. Let's reach out and let's learn from each other.
Wow, I felt the eye contact. How about you, Jason?
You can reach me at Hazmat Nation, Jason at Hazmat Nation. We're always looking for good news articles and stuff to share. I think it's noteworthy to say the Tech Talk, the second installment in Tech Talk, which is information from the nation, you guys, is just about ready, and I hope it's out by the end of the week. It is some hazmat wizardry from Jeff Zintek out there in the Southwest. So, but yeah, so check us out, hazmatnation.com. And I will be Kosh's shadow in Virginia, and will be one of the usual suspects down in Nashville, which is going to be a good time. So if you're interested in Hazmat Nation T-shirts, come see us at one of the shows, one of the conferences.
Awesome. And all the conferences were covered. I think, is Pennsylvania happening now? We're promoting that as well. Anybody else that has a conference, we'll talk about it. I'm Phil from HazSim and Hazmat Nation. I'll be at Nashville and all those places also. But it's going to be good. It's going to be not only hands-on classes that we've done before and then improved, but Jason and Bob will also be going over the opposite of what we were talking about, which is really taking the rule of thumb and throwing it out the window and going in for a well-educated rescue when the conditions are right, and don't treat those immediate need rescues as the industrial hazmats like we just spoke of. That concludes another episode. This is 35 weeks running. I think 35 weeks of total viewers. We probably have 34 viewers total.
Yes, thank you, Mom and Dad.
Thanks, Mom and Dad. And
this all started from beer in a bar. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I have a webcam over at Forest Lawn too. There's thousands just watching us right now. But thanks for joining us, and like everybody said, try to get a hold of us if you have something, and if you've given us something and we haven't talked about it yet, it's because we're all working schmoes, and it takes us a while, but we'll get to it. We want to hear from you. Did I forget anything, Mike?
I don't think so.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Sweet dreams.